Marrying a human for peace backfired when he revealed power no alien HFY stories. Humans were young in the galaxy but clever and adaptable. The Zarethi, on the other hand, were proud, tall, and covered in silver scales. They believed in honor, strength, and control. For centuries, humans and Zarethi had clashed at borders, skirmishes turning into small wars. Neither side had an edge, but the Zarethi saw humans as weak, emotional, and easy to manipulate. To end the constant fighting, the Galaxy Council decided on a radical solution: a marriage. A human officer would marry a Zarethi noblewoman. This marriage would symbolize peace and cooperation. It would show the galaxy that humans could be trusted and that the Zarethi were wise and merciful. Lyra was chosen. She was the daughter of a high-ranking Zarethi lord, tall and elegant, with silver scales that shimmered under the lights of the council hall. She had been trained her whole life to serve her family and species. She knew about strategy, negotiation, and survival. But marriage to a human, she saw it as a duty, not love. Most Zarethi nobles laughed at the idea. How could a human, small, soft-skinned, emotional, possibly cowardly, represent peace for her species? Ethan Cole, the human, was selected for the role. He was not a hero or famous soldier. He was calm, polite, and careful. He had trained for years in diplomacy, strategy, and observation. To the Zarethi Council, he seemed harmless. They had underestimated him from the start. On the day of the ceremony, the council hall was crowded. Alien nobles from dozens of species had gathered. Lyra stood tall in her silver ceremonial robes. Ethan wore the human version of formal clothing, a simple dark suit with no decorations. The humans had wanted to look modest, respectful, and neutral. The ceremony began with pomp. The Zarethi High Lord spoke in deep, musical tones. He praised the Zarethi and their wisdom and warned humans to respect the Union. Alien nobles whispered to each other, pointing at Ethan. "Weak," one hissed. "He will break under pressure," another said. Lyra felt their judgment but stayed composed. She knew she had to follow the rules of the council. Ethan walked slowly to Lyra, his eyes calm. He smiled politely and bowed. He did not flinch at the stares or the mocking whispers. The alien's mockery seemed to amuse him slightly, though he did not show it openly. The council thought this proved how simple humans were. They smiled at everything and showed no real understanding. When the vows were exchanged, Lyra recited the words with careful precision. Ethan's voice was calm, even, and clear. He did not exaggerate his feelings. He spoke of respect, peace, and commitment. The aliens expected nothing more. They thought humans only understood loyalty to family or minor pride, not serious strategy. The council watched, nodding, satisfied. They thought the marriage was a perfect plan to control humans. After the ceremony, the crowd moved to the banquet hall. Exotic foods from across the galaxy were served, some unrecognizable to human senses. Ethan tried each dish politely, never showing disgust. Lyra noticed small things about him: how he observed the aliens, how he remembered names and titles, how he asked subtle questions about the council and its plans. He seemed harmless, but he was always learning. The council's plan was simple. Humans would be tied to the Zarethi through marriage. The Union would act as a leash. Ethan was expected to be a puppet. The Zarethi nobles laughed quietly among themselves, thinking of the humans' tiny, fragile bodies and slow ships. They did not realize that humanity often hid its strength. Lyra had mixed feelings. On one hand, she felt the weight of duty. She wanted peace, but she also felt uneasy about how humans had been underestimated. Ethan was polite, quiet, and careful, but something in his calm eyes made her pay attention. He never seemed afraid or uncertain. She realized he noticed everything. Every whisper, every glance, every secret plan the council thought he missed. During the banquet, minor incidents occurred. A Zarethi noble spilled wine intentionally on a human diplomat. Ethan smiled and calmly helped him clean it, avoiding any argument. The crowd laughed at the human's patience. No one suspected that Ethan had memorized the noble's reactions, learned his strengths, weaknesses, and alliances. Lyra watched silently, unsure whether to trust him fully but intrigued by his intelligence. Later, as the evening continued, the council held a private meeting with Lyra and Ethan. They explained the expectations. He must follow Zarethi rules, act humble, and avoid challenging any decision. He must be a symbol of peace, not a threat. Ethan nodded respectfully. He said little, but he listened carefully. Every word, every tone mattered. Lyra realized that even in obedience, he was quietly assessing the situation. He was not simple at all. As the night ended, Lyra returned to her chambers. She stared at the stars visible through the tall windows. Peace was fragile. She understood the council's plan to control humans, but she could not ignore the small signals that something about Ethan was different. He did not act like other humans she had seen. He was calm, measured, and careful, but there was a subtle strength in his quiet demeanor. She could not yet tell if it was dangerous or powerful. Meanwhile, Ethan reviewed the day in his mind. The council thought him harmless. He had learned their personalities, alliances, and fears. He knew the Zarethi underestimated humans, and he would use that to humanity's advantage if needed. For now, he acted as expected, quiet and polite. He had no reason to reveal his true strength yet. The galaxy believed humans were weak. Ethan knew the truth. They were patient observers, ready to respond when the moment came. The first night of the marriage ended quietly. Lyra lay awake, thinking of her duty and the strange calm of her human husband. Ethan, in his own way, did the same. He knew this marriage was more than a ceremony. It was a test, a stage for observation, and perhaps a step toward a larger future. Neither fully trusted the other yet, but both understood that the galaxy watched, and that the smallest misstep could lead to disaster. The political marriage had begun. On the surface, it looked like humans had given in to alien authority. But beneath the polite words and smiles, the first seeds of a greater story were planted. Humans were learning about the Zarethi. The Zarethi were underestimating humans, and Lyra was caught between duty and growing curiosity about her husband's true nature. As the night deepened, the stars over the Zarethi capital shone like cold silver flames. The council believed they had tamed the humans with ceremony and marriage. But in quiet corners, humans always observed, learned, and waited. The galaxy had made its first mistake, thinking a human could be measured by appearance alone. In the coming days, Ethan would settle into the palace, observe, and understand. Lyra would balance her loyalty to her people and her growing understanding of her husband. The marriage was only the beginning. The council had planned control and obedience, but the galaxy had yet to see what humans were truly capable of. And so, the political marriage began, a fragile symbol of peace. Beneath the smiles and careful words, power quietly shifted. In the calm eyes of a human and the thoughtful gaze of a Zarethi noblewoman, a story of patience, strategy, and underestimated strength began to unfold. Part 2. Life among the aliens. After the wedding, Ethan moved into the Zarethi capital. The palace was enormous, filled with silver walls, sharp angles, and glowing lights. Corridors seemed endless, and every room was decorated with alien art, much of it strange and difficult for human eyes to understand. Lyra guided him through the palace, explaining customs, rules, and etiquette. Every day was a lesson in patience, observation, and careful behavior. The Zarethi nobles watched Ethan closely. They wanted to see if he would fail, if he would make a mistake and reveal his human weaknesses. Some openly mocked him behind his back, calling him a softling and a toy human. They believed he could never understand the subtleties of their culture. Ethan ignored the insults. He never raised his voice, never complained, and never made a move without thinking. His calm demeanor only made the nobles more certain of his simplicity. Lyra noticed the subtle differences in Ethan. He remembered names of servants, schedules, and even the tiniest gestures of the nobles. He did not react to pride or anger. He asked questions quietly, but always in a way that made people reveal more than they intended. It was not obvious, but Lyra could see that he was learning much faster than anyone expected. One day, a minor crisis occurred. A Zarethi servant accidentally spilled a rare liquid on an expensive council artifact. Nobles began to shout and argue, accusing each other of negligence. Lyra froze, unsure how to intervene. Ethan stepped forward calmly. He suggested a simple method to clean the artifact without causing damage. His solution was practical, quick, and effective. The nobles were shocked. They had expected panic, fear, or anger. Ethan had solved the problem without a single complaint or dramatic gesture. Afterward, the whispers about Ethan grew. "Perhaps he is not as weak as he looks," a noble said quietly. "Still, he is only human," another replied. Lyra realized that the humans had more patience and cleverness than many aliens assumed. They were not stronger physically, but their minds were sharp, and they observed every detail. She began to respect Ethan in a new way, though she did not yet fully trust him. Life in the palace was not easy for Ethan. Everything was alien: the food, the gravity adjustments, the rituals, and the strict hierarchy. He learned quickly to adapt. He made no mistakes in speech or manners, which earned him cautious respect. He also quietly mapped the palace, remembering routes, exits, and patterns of guard patrols. Nothing was wasted in his memory. Lyra began to spend more time with Ethan. She explained the politics of the Zarethi Council, the rivalries between families, and the hidden threats in the palace. Ethan listened patiently, asking questions that clarified points without challenging anyone openly. Lyra could not decide if he was simply curious or if he had a plan. Either way, his calm intelligence impressed her. As weeks passed, Lyra noticed something strange. Ethan did not seem afraid of the noble's subtle threats. When a noble attempted to intimidate him with sharp words, he smiled politely and asked a harmless question in return. The noble would leave confused, unsure if they had succeeded. Lyra realized that this human could not be easily manipulated. One afternoon, a delivery from a distant planet arrived at the palace. It contained rare technology, dangerous if mishandled. The council called a meeting to inspect it, expecting the humans to be useless. Ethan asked for permission to examine the device. The council reluctantly agreed. He carefully studied the technology, asking questions about the materials, energy sources, and functions. In the end, he offered a simple suggestion to improve safety and efficiency. Again, the nobles were shocked. They had assumed he could not understand alien engineering. Lyra watched closely. She began to see the truth. Humans were underestimated because they hid their strengths. They appeared weak to gain observation time, to avoid unnecessary conflict. Ethan was doing the same thing now. He acted calm and polite, but he was learning, calculating, and quietly preparing. Lyra felt a mix of admiration and unease. At night, Ethan often walked the palace gardens. He observed the stars, the alien moons, and the patterns of life around the palace. Lyra sometimes joined him. They would talk quietly about small things: plants, animals, distant planets. Ethan never revealed his full thoughts or plans, but he shared enough to make Lyra curious. She began to think of him not just as a symbol of peace, but as a person. Someone clever, patient, and capable of far more than the council expected. Despite this growing respect, tensions continued to rise in the council. Some nobles wanted to break the peace treaty secretly and attack human colonies before humanity could strengthen. They whispered plans in hidden corridors, assuming that Ethan could do nothing. Lyra overheard some of these conversations. She feared for humanity, but she did not know if she should warn him. For the first time, she realized that her marriage was not only political but could affect entire worlds. Ethan noticed the subtle tensions too. He had learned quickly how to read Zarethi emotions, their pride and their fears. He did not reveal his own abilities or knowledge. He simply observed, remembering names, positions, and weaknesses. He was not planning aggression, yet, but he was ready to act if necessary. Lyra began to see the quiet power in him. She understood that humans were patient observers, waiting for the right moment. As life in the palace continued, small incidents showed the contrast between human calm and alien pride. A guard challenged Ethan to demonstrate strength. Ethan politely refused, explaining that violence was unnecessary. The guard insisted. Ethan moved only slightly, guiding the guard's balance, and the man stumbled without harm to himself or Ethan. Nobles gasped. A human they thought weak had bested a trained Zarethi warrior without using force. Whispers spread through the palace. "Perhaps he is stronger than we imagined," a noble muttered. Lyra felt a shiver of excitement and fear. The council, however, remained confident. They believed the human could be observed, controlled, and limited. They did not yet realize that they had underestimated the patience, intelligence, and adaptability of humans. Ethan's calm exterior hid a mind capable of strategy, planning, and understanding alien systems better than most aliens themselves. Lyra began to understand this truth slowly, even if the council did not. Days turned into weeks and weeks into months. Ethan's presence became a subtle influence in the palace. He did not dominate, but he showed that patience and calm intelligence could solve problems that anger and pride could not. Lyra noticed that nobles began to avoid open insults or threats. Even the most confident alien leaders began to watch him quietly, curious about his behavior. One evening, Lyra asked Ethan why he never seemed afraid or anxious, even when others mocked or threatened him. Ethan smiled softly. "Fear can blind you," he said. "Calm observation shows the truth. Humans survive by seeing clearly, not by rushing into anger or pride." Lyra reflected on his words. They were simple, but they carried power. She realized that humans were not weak. They simply approached life differently, waiting for the right moment to act. Life among the aliens continued, with its ceremonies, rules, and hidden tensions. Ethan adapted, learned, and quietly impressed Lyra and some curious nobles. The council still believed they controlled the human, but in truth, they had begun a subtle shift in power. Humans were not loud, aggressive, or reckless. They were patient, intelligent, and capable of far more than the Zarethi imagined. Lyra began to see that her marriage was more than a political arrangement. It was a bridge between species, yes, but it was also a test of patience, intelligence, and strength. Ethan's calm demeanor hid a quiet power, one that the council had not yet understood. She felt pride in her human husband, though she knew that the galaxy had yet to see his true abilities. As the night fell over the Zarethi capital, the stars reflected in the palace's silver walls. The council still believed they had tamed humanity with a marriage. But in the quiet minds of Ethan Cole and the careful gaze of Lyra, a new story began, one of observation, understanding, and the quiet rise of a human who would change the rules of the galaxy. And so, life among the aliens went on. Lyra learned to respect her human husband, not just as a symbol but as a being of quiet strength. Ethan continued to watch, learn, and adapt. The council believed they controlled the situation. They did not realize that patience, intelligence, and careful observation were weapons humans had always wielded, and that the seeds of a greater change had already been planted. Part 3. The betrayal months had passed since Ethan arrived at the Zarethi capital. He had learned the rules of the palace, the ways of the council, and the hidden rivalries between nobles. The Zarethi still underestimated him. They believed humans were weak, emotional, and simple, but Ethan knew better. He had observed every detail, every pattern, and every flaw in their plans. Lyra had noticed the change in him too. He was still polite, calm and careful, but now there was a subtle confidence in his actions. He no longer merely adapted, he anticipated. He could predict how the nobles would react to words, gestures, or even silence. It was almost invisible to the council, but Lyra could see it. She began to realize that humans were far stronger than anyone admitted. One day, Lyra overheard a secret council meeting. The council had decided to attack a human border colony. They would break the peace treaty, strike quickly, and claim human territory before Earth could respond. Their plan relied on speed, secrecy, and the assumption that humans would beg for mercy. Lyra's heart sank. She had always served her people faithfully, but this act would be dishonorable and cruel. She went to Ethan privately and told him what she had heard. "They plan to attack," she said softly. "You must warn Earth or many will die." Ethan listened carefully. He did not show panic, anger, or fear. His calm eyes met hers and he spoke quietly. "I will act," he said, "but we must be careful. The council believes I am powerless. We will use that to our advantage." Lyra realized that Ethan understood something the council did not. Humans survived by observation and patience, not by rushing into conflict. The council's attack began suddenly. Zarethi fleets moved toward the border colony, confident in their speed and strength. They expected the humans to be unprepared, weak, and frightened. Ethan asked permission to communicate with Earth. The council hesitated, but they allowed it, thinking the time would be too short for a meaningful response. They underestimated human technology, patience, and intelligence. While the Zarethi attacked, human fleets appeared. Faster, more precise, and stronger than the council expected, they intercepted the Zarethi without panic or confusion. Ethan had prepared for this. He had coordinated secretly with human commanders, using subtle signals and careful timing. The Zarethi were shocked. Their assumptions about human weakness had been completely wrong. Lyra watched in disbelief. The humans did not destroy indiscriminately. They disabled ships, neutralized weapons, and protected civilians. It was a controlled demonstration of power. Ethan revealed his true abilities, not as a conqueror, but as a strategist and protector. The Zarethi realized, too late, that they had made a critical mistake. They had underestimated not just one human, but an entire species capable of adapting and responding with precision. The council scrambled to respond. Some nobles panicked, shouting orders, blaming each other for the failure. Others tried to retreat, only to find human ships already controlling the key routes. Ethan moved calmly, directing human forces with efficiency and clarity. He was not reckless. Every action was measured, precise, and deliberate. The council could not understand how a single human had orchestrated such a response. Lyra felt a mix of fear, pride, and awe. Her husband, the human she had married for political duty, was showing a power no alien could have expected. He was not loud or aggressive. He was patient, intelligent, and decisive. He had hidden his strength, just as humans always did, and now it was revealed in the moment that mattered most. The battle ended with minimal casualties but total strategic victory for humans. The council had to admit defeat. Their plan to attack and dominate human territory had failed. Ethan had turned their own assumptions against them. The Zarethi had believed that a marriage would give them control. Instead, it gave humanity access, insight, and a chance to act effectively. In the aftermath, Lyra spoke to Ethan privately. "I married you to bring peace," she said quietly. "I did not expect this. I did not expect power like this." Ethan looked at her calmly. "Peace requires strength," he said. "Humans are patient because we survive by seeing clearly. We act when it is needed, not before." Lyra realized that the council's mistake was thinking that politeness and patience were weakness. In humans, these qualities were weapons as effective as any fleet or weapon. The council attempted to negotiate, offering terms they thought humans would accept. Ethan listened carefully. He responded with simple clarity, refusing unfair conditions while protecting innocent lives. He did not boast or threaten. His calm authority made the council realize the humans were not to be toyed with. Lyra observed quietly. The marriage had been intended to be a leash, but it had revealed true strength instead. Some nobles tried to discredit Ethan, claiming luck, coincidence, or exaggeration. Lyra laughed quietly at their arrogance. She had seen him plan, observe, and act. Luck had nothing to do with it. Humans were underestimated because aliens believed appearances told the truth. Ethan's quiet patience, intelligence, and preparation had won where arrogance and pride had failed. As the city celebrated the avoidance of disaster, Lyra and Ethan walked through the palace gardens. "The council believes you are lucky," Lyra said. "They cannot see what I see," Ethan smiled faintly. "They never notice what is quiet, steady, or careful. Humans have always survived this way. We do not rush. We observe. We act when it matters." Lyra nodded. She realized that she had married not a weak human, but a species far more capable than the Zarethi had imagined. Meanwhile, the council began to plan secretly for retaliation. Some nobles still hoped to attack again, thinking they had learned nothing. Ethan and Lyra knew the danger was not over. Humans had revealed power, but they also wanted to avoid unnecessary destruction. The council underestimated patience as much as power. Human patience was not weakness. It was waiting for the perfect moment to respond. In private chambers, Ethan reviewed reports of the battle. He studied every movement of the Zarethi, every decision made by nobles, and every flaw in their strategy. He noted patterns, weaknesses, and tendencies. Humans had learned what the Zarethi did not expect, that observation, careful planning, and timing could defeat arrogance and pride. Lyra watched him work. She began to see the future clearly. Humans did not need to fight aggressively to show strength. Their intelligence, patience, and hidden capabilities made them unpredictable and powerful. The council had attempted to manipulate her marriage for control. Instead, the marriage had given humans insight and access, showing that strength was not always loud or obvious. The Zarethi Council began to accept that their plan had failed. Whispers of doubt spread among the nobles. Some admitted in private that humans were stronger than they had imagined. Others clung to hope, thinking the victory was temporary. Lyra knew the truth. Humans had revealed what they wanted to reveal at the moment that mattered most. The council had miscalculated completely. As night fell over the Zarethi capital, Lyra stood with Ethan on the balcony of their chambers. The stars shone above, silent witnesses to the events of the day. Ethan spoke softly. "The council thinks this marriage gives them control. It does not. It gives us understanding." Lyra nodded. She realized that power was often hidden in patience, observation, and calm intelligence. Humans had shown the galaxy that appearances were deceptive. The first true crisis of the marriage had passed. The council had planned betrayal, expecting weakness. Ethan had quietly turned the situation into victory. Lyra felt a new respect for her husband. She also understood the danger. The council would not forget this lesson easily. Humans had revealed power no alien expected, but the galaxy still had many challenges ahead. In the quiet halls of the palace, the seeds of future strategy were planted. Humans had shown their true capability, not through aggression, but through patience, careful observation, and precise action. The Zarethi Council had learned a painful truth. Underestimating humans was a dangerous mistake. And Lyra realized that her marriage, intended as a tool of control, had become a symbol of strength, insight, and the beginning of a new balance in the galaxy. Part 4. Humanity revealed after the failed attack on the human colony. The Zarethi Council was in chaos. Some nobles tried to blame each other for the failure. Others attempted to hide their panic behind calm expressions. But inside, every one of them understood that something had changed. Humans were not weak. Humans were not simple. And Ethan Cole, the human husband of Lyra, had shown a power that no alien had expected. Lyra moved through the palace corridors quietly, observing the faces of the nobles. She noticed fear creeping into their confident gazes. For the first time, she realized that humans had a power beyond weapons or ships. It was patience, intelligence, and the ability to act when the moment demanded it. The council had made a fatal mistake in underestimating that. Ethan's calm authority had shifted the balance. He did not boast, threaten, or demand. He simply acted. Human fleets had arrived faster than the Zarethi technology predicted. Their ships moved in perfect formation, neutralizing Zarethi war machines with precision. The humans showed that power was not about destruction but control, planning, and timing. The council held an emergency meeting. Zarethi nobles argued loudly, trying to understand how humans had done what they did. They could not have moved so quickly, one noble shouted. They must have hidden forces, another cried. The High Lord tried to calm them, but the panic was spreading. Lyra watched silently. She had seen Ethan's methods. It was not hidden forces, it was planning, patience, and intelligence. Humans were always underestimated because aliens assumed strength was only physical or loud. Ethan addressed the council through a calm transmission. "We do not seek unnecessary war," he said. "We acted to prevent a massacre. Humans survive by observation and careful action. We do not fight blindly. Your assumptions about weakness have been proven wrong. Peace requires recognition of strength, not ignorance of it." The council was silent. They had never heard words so calm and clear, carrying so much power without anger. Lyra felt a surge of pride. Her human husband had not only saved human lives, but he had also revealed a lesson to the galaxy. Patience, intelligence, and careful strategy were just as powerful as fleets, weapons, or numbers. The council had relied on arrogance, thinking humans would beg or fail. They had been wrong. The Zarethi fleets had retreated, their commanders confused and cautious. Ethan coordinated human forces with precision, disabling weapons without destroying ships unnecessarily. It was not about revenge. It was about control and balance. The council realized that humans were capable of both restraint and overwhelming strength. They had misunderstood the species entirely. In the palace, nobles whispered among themselves. Some were angry, refusing to believe that humans could outthink them. Others were scared, recognizing the danger of underestimating a species that could act decisively when needed. Lyra observed quietly. She understood that the marriage, intended to give control to the Zarethi, had instead given humans insight and access. It was a turning point. Ethan and Lyra met privately in the gardens. "They still think humans are weak," Lyra said, "but now they are cautious. They fear making mistakes." Ethan nodded. "Humans survive by observing and acting only when necessary. Power is not always loud or aggressive." The council believed politeness and patience meant weakness. It does not. Lyra realized that his calm words carried more authority than any Zarethi declaration. The council attempted to negotiate, hoping to regain some control. Ethan listened carefully. He did not act angrily or impulsively. He responded with clarity, refusing unfair terms while protecting innocent lives. The council realized that humans were not conquerors by nature, but they were not to be underestimated. They could act decisively and strategically when necessary. Lyra began to understand the full significance. The marriage had been intended as a tool to control humans. Instead, it had revealed their strength, intelligence, and patience. Ethan's calm demeanor and careful planning had shown that humans were far more capable than the Zarethi had assumed. She felt admiration, trust, and a new kind of respect for him. In the days following the battle, humans demonstrated their abilities further. They repaired damaged ships, optimized systems, and improved communication networks. Every action showed intelligence, coordination, and careful planning. Zarethi nobles began to whisper that humans were not what they seemed. They had underestimated them completely. Lyra observed the council's growing unease. Some nobles tried to deny reality, claiming luck or coincidence. Others studied humans quietly, trying to learn their secrets. Lyra realized that patience, intelligence, and careful observation were weapons humans wielded naturally. They acted when the moment was right, and they acted decisively. The Zarethi had been caught off guard by qualities they did not understand. Ethan met with Lyra in a private chamber. "They will try again," he said. "Some nobles will want revenge. Others will attempt diplomacy. We must be ready. Humans do not seek endless war, but we do not forgive arrogance that endangers lives." Lyra nodded. She understood that the galaxy had learned a hard lesson. Humans were not loud conquerors, but patient, careful, and capable of overwhelming force when needed. As the council convened, Ethan addressed them directly. "Humans have always survived in a galaxy of strong species," he said. "We do not rely on brute force alone. We observe, learn, and act with purpose. Your assumptions about weakness are dangerous. Peace requires understanding strength, not ignoring it." The council fell silent. No one dared interrupt. The calm voice of a human had more authority than their loudest arguments. Lyra watched as her husband stood firm, not with anger but with clarity. The council had believed that a marriage could control a species. They had been wrong. The human had shown insight, patience, and intelligence. The galaxy had never seen anything like it. Humans were capable of responding to threats with precision and balance, not just raw power. In the following days, the council tried to regain control. They sent diplomats, spies, and strategists to understand humans. Ethan welcomed negotiation, but he never revealed unnecessary information. He acted politely, strategically, and decisively. Every move demonstrated that humans could be calm, patient, and far stronger than anyone expected. Lyra realized that the marriage had changed the balance of power. Humans were no longer underestimated. They had shown patience, intelligence, and careful strength. The council had tried to manipulate her marriage to gain control. Instead, it revealed humanity's true power. She felt both pride and relief. The galaxy had learned a lesson that would not be forgotten. The Zarethi fleets withdrew, nobles whispered, and the council reevaluated their assumptions. Humans had revealed their strength, but they had done so carefully, without unnecessary destruction. Lyra understood the message. Humans were not reckless, but they were not weak. They acted when needed with patience, intelligence, and precise power. At night, Lyra stood on the balcony with Ethan. The stars reflected on the silver walls of the palace. "They underestimated you," she said quietly. "They underestimated humans." Ethan looked at her calmly. "We survive because we observe, we learn, and we act with care." They saw only what they wanted to see. Humans are quiet, patient, and capable of far more than they imagine. Lyra nodded. She understood that the galaxy had seen the first real lesson of humanity. The council had been forced to surrender, not by rage or brute force, but by careful planning, patience, and intelligence. Humans had revealed what aliens did not expect, that appearances could be deceiving, and quiet strength could be far more powerful than loud displays of pride. As the city settled into cautious peace, Lyra knew that her marriage had become more than a political tool. It was a bridge between species, a symbol of patience, strategy, and hidden power. Ethan had shown the galaxy that humans could act decisively, protect their people, and reveal their true strength when the moment demanded it. The first full revelation of humanity's capabilities had passed. The council had learned, in a moment of quiet but undeniable clarity, that humans were not simple, weak, or emotional. They were intelligent, patient, and capable of far more than anyone had believed. And Lyra knew that the story was only beginning. The galaxy would never again underestimate humans. Part 5. A new balance, the dust of battle had settled, but the Zarethi Council remained uneasy. Whispers of failure and surprise ran through the corridors of the palace. Some nobles avoided eye contact with Ethan, afraid to show weakness. Others tried to deny what had happened, claiming luck or coincidence. But everyone knew the truth. Humans were not what they had assumed. Humans were strong, intelligent, and patient, and Ethan Cole had shown that no marriage, no ceremony, and no mocking could hide that. Lyra walked beside Ethan through the grand halls. She had come to respect him deeply, not just as her husband, but as a representative of a species capable of extraordinary patience and careful action. "They will not forget today," she said softly. "Some will still try to challenge humans. Others will fear us." Ethan nodded calmly. "We do not seek revenge, we seek peace, but peace requires recognition of strength. They will learn." The council sent envoys to negotiate. They offered terms they thought humans would accept. Lyra watched as Ethan listened carefully. He asked questions, clarified details, and considered each point. The humans were firm yet fair. They did not humiliate the council, but they did make it clear that unfair aggression would not be tolerated. Every word, every gesture, showed intelligence and calm authority. The council began to understand that this was not a species to be underestimated. In private, Lyra asked Ethan how he planned to deal with the council's arrogance. "We will act with clarity," he said. "Humans do not need to conquer to be respected. We need to show that patience, intelligence, and careful action matter more than pride and loud displays of power. We give them choice, but consequences follow for dishonesty or betrayal." Lyra understood. This was not about revenge. It was about balance. The galaxy had learned that strength could be subtle and quiet, yet decisive. Human fleets assisted the Zarethi in securing border systems, repairing damaged installations, and restoring order after the attempted attack. They moved efficiently, calmly, and without unnecessary destruction. Nobles who had doubted humans before now watched in awe. The humans did not need to display arrogance or pride. They demonstrated strength simply by acting with precision, fairness, and strategy. The council finally called a formal meeting. All the nobles gathered, wary of human presence. Ethan addressed them directly. "Humans seek peace," he said. "We do not conquer blindly, nor do we seek war without reason. But we do not allow injustice or dishonesty to threaten our people or others. Your assumptions about weakness are dangerous. Recognize strength, and peace is possible." The council was silent. For the first time, they realized that humans had power beyond the visible, beyond weapons and fleets. Intelligence and patience were as formidable as physical strength. Lyra watched quietly. The marriage, which had begun as a political tool, had become a bridge. It had revealed humanity's true abilities and set a precedent for respect and cooperation. The council understood that they could no longer treat humans lightly. Every decision, every plan, now had to consider the consequences. Humans were patient observers who acted decisively when necessary. They had patience, but patience was not weakness. It was a weapon, a strategy, and a lesson. As the days passed, humans and Zarethi began working together more closely. Trade routes were reopened, border patrols coordinated, and scientific exchanges started. The council grudgingly admitted that cooperation with humans was not only wise but essential. The nobles learned humility slowly, but the lesson was lasting. Humans did not dominate. They guided with fairness, intelligence, and clear purpose. Lyra spoke to Ethan one evening while watching the twin moons rise over the city. "You have changed everything," she said, "not with force but with wisdom." The council had expected obedience, but they found strength. Ethan smiled softly. "Humans survive by observing and acting carefully. We do not need to be loud to be strong. Patience and intelligence are enough." The galaxy has learned this lesson now. Lyra felt a deep pride and relief. Her husband's quiet strength had ensured peace without unnecessary bloodshed. In the following weeks, the Council officially recognized the human achievements. Treaties were revised to reflect fairness, security, and mutual respect. Zarethi nobles could no longer dismiss humans as weak or foolish. Humans had revealed their true capabilities: patience, intelligence, and precise action. The marriage had become a symbol, not of control, but of understanding and balance between species. Lyra reflected on how much had changed. She had married a human to ensure peace, thinking she could use him as a tool. Instead, she had learned humility, respect, and trust. Ethan had quietly revealed power that no alien had expected. He had shown that humans were capable of protecting themselves, negotiating fairly, and acting decisively without arrogance. The galaxy had learned a vital truth: underestimate humans at your peril. The Council attempted to regain prestige, but they understood that humans would act if needed. Humans did not seek endless war, but they would not tolerate aggression or dishonesty. The galaxy had entered a new era, one where humans were respected not because of fear, but because their patience, intelligence, and careful action demanded it. Lyra and Ethan walked through the palace gardens, now calm after the recent crises. Flowers glowed under alien lights, fountains sparkled, and distant ships moved silently across the skies. "We have shown them something they will never forget," Lyra said. "Peace is possible, but they know humans are not weak." Ethan nodded. "It is enough. Peace with recognition of strength is better than fear or chaos. Humans do not need to conquer. We simply need to be understood." The Zarethi Council slowly adapted. Nobles who had once mocked humans now watched carefully, learning from them, respecting them, and understanding that patience and intelligence could surpass pride and arrogance. The galaxy had changed. Humans had demonstrated that strength was not always obvious, but always effective when applied at the right time. Lyra realized that the marriage, which had started as a political tool, had become a story for the galaxy. It was no longer about control or manipulation. It was about understanding, respect, and the quiet power of a species that had always survived, always observed, and always acted wisely when necessary. Ethan's calm demeanor, intelligence, and patience became a model for diplomacy across systems. Humans did not need to dominate to be respected. They guided, protected, and demonstrated strength with subtlety. The galaxy had learned that appearances could be deceiving, and quiet observation could reveal true power. As the twin moons set and new stars rose, Lyra and Ethan stood together on the balcony. "You have changed everything," Lyra whispered. Ethan took her hand. "We have changed everything," he said. "Humans survive by patience, intelligence, and careful action." "Now the galaxy knows," Lyra smiled. She understood that the marriage had become more than duty. It had become a story of respect, patience, and the real strength of humanity. The Council would never forget the lesson. Humans had revealed what no alien expected. Strength was not always loud, quick, or aggressive. It could be quiet, patient, and decisive. Peace was possible, but only when the galaxy recognized the intelligence and abilities of those it had once underestimated. And so, a new balance settled over the stars. Humans and Zarethi worked together, not because one dominated the other, but because respect and understanding had been proven stronger than arrogance and pride. The marriage had begun as a political tool, but it had revealed a deeper truth. Humanity was patient, intelligent, and capable of great power, and the galaxy would never underestimate them again. Lyra looked at Ethan, her husband and partner in peace. The story that had begun with mockery and doubt had ended with respect and understanding. Humans were no longer underestimated. Their true strength, quiet, careful, and decisive, had been revealed. And the galaxy had learned that marrying a human for peace had backfired in a way the Council could never have imagined. The stars shone brightly over the palace, silent witnesses to a new era. Patience, intelligence and subtle strength had changed the course of history. Humanity had shown its power, not by violence, but by wisdom, and Lyra understood that the galaxy had entered a future shaped by the quiet, careful, and undeniable power of humans. Peace was no longer fragile. It was steady, earned through understanding, patience, and the revelation of true strength. And as Ethan and Lyra stood together, watching the galaxy stretch beyond the horizon, they knew that humans had secured their place, not through fear, but through respect, intelligence, and quiet power. The story of the marriage, once a political tool, had become a symbol of humanity's enduring strength, and the galaxy had learned a lesson it would never forget: never underestimate humans.